punishment is an effective tool, but a very, very limited tool. When you teach someone through punishment, what you learn usually lasts maybe at best 6 months. Usually, except if you traumatize them. But of course, this brings a lot of side effects. You of course don't want.
As is known.
Traumatizing people isn't really. It's not ethical, and of course it brings out more problems. So what is better than punishment is not necessarily reward, but it's identification. People forget that most of us, because we're social animals, we learn from having positive relationships, models. So teachers are models. The relationship they foster with their teacher is a model of a relationship they can reproduce or mimic with other people. So they have in prison, when they go to school, that small window where they feel they are normal. And it gives them an idea of how to act once they are going to be outside.
The interview you're about to listen to is with Sam Rochette, a CEGEP psychology professor who also teaches inmates. Now, the 52-year-old program that provided CEGEP education to some certain federal prisons in Quebec is coming to an end. And I asked Sam to come on to share his experiences teaching these inmates, as well as what benefits society is losing in general with the loss of this program. Here's the interview. Welcome back to Local 514. My name is Kalden Dhatsenpa. I am your host. Today's topic, CEGEP education in prisons. This has been a program going on for 52 years now. However, in February, there was announcements that the program is coming to an end. Initially, it was slated to have ended June 30th, but it's been extended until September. I'm here with Sam Rochette to talk about this program, about the benefits of it, and why Sam believes it should continue. Sam teaches prisoners through this program and has a rich and knowledgeable perspective to share on it. Thank you for coming in, Sam.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Terrific. I mean, 52 years going on. When did you start teaching prisoners? And could you tell us a little bit about the program as well?
Okay, these are two
it's
very
a
different
double-barreled
questions.
question
Okay.
is what they call it.
So I'll start with the program. It's been going on for 52 years, almost 53 now. And usually what happens is that when you're in prison, you have to find an occupation, like you can be a cook or a janitor. So you have to find some sort of an employment. It's not an employing per se because you're underpaid, like something like, I don't remember exactly how much, but like $5 a day or something like that. So it's really limited. But you kind of have to find an occupation. And human beings don't like to do nothing. People like to do nothing when they're on vacation or holidays or something like that. But after a while, you get bored quite easily. So you need stimulation. And so most people find occupations. One of these occupations, one of the possibilities over in Cowansville and also in Joliette, is to go through a post-secondary education program. So CEGEP over here in Quebec. We have that specifically in prison in Quebec because all over Canada, the CSC has to provide for 12 years of education. But in Quebec, as many people know, we have the primary education, which is 6 years, and then secondary, which is 5 years. So we have 11 years. And so if we just provide primary and secondary or elementary and secondary education, in Quebec, they still miss 1 year. So the first year is CEGEP, college education. And it started like this. We had college education all over different penitentiary. We had different penitentiary programs all over Quebec, but over time they cut many places, and now we only have Joliette and Coansville. And so people can choose to be students, and while choosing to be students, they receive that little fund of about $5 a day or something like that. But people could say, "Oh yeah, you get paid to go to school." But when you think about it, all the others inmates, they usually work in the morning, in the afternoon, and then they have free time and they can relax in the evening. Our inmates, our students, they usually have to study and do some different research or prepare for exams, or there are have a lot of activities related to schoolwork. And so usually when they start, they're very hyped, and then the first few weeks they realize, damn, it's a lot of work and I have to work more than the other inmates. So they usually keep going, and they discover that they can have a discipline that they didn't know they had, or they create that discipline because they didn't have that discipline. Usually they had a lifestyle that favored quick or easy rewards.
Sure.
So that's very rewarding for them, not only in a way of being stimulated mentally, but it's also very rewarding because other inmates see that they're working in the evening, and they respect that. They really respect that. Most of them will say, I don't understand how you can do this. I really admire how you do it. So they get rewarded for their discipline, which helped them in many other fields. For instance, one of my students realized that he could use that discipline for cooking. So he started cooking, and he started cooking for other inmates, and it became some sort of a communitary program, unofficial, of course, but where he was socially rewarded for giving to the others using that same discipline he developed at school.
That's really interesting, because I feel the obvious benefits, of course, that people will point to is the actual education, the things that come out of that. But it's interesting to hear about this kind of, I guess, like echo of the benefits, right? This kind of social reward, but then also this kind of confidence building that it seems to provide.
Oh yeah. There are a lot of this. The biggest rewards are not the diploma itself. The diploma, in fact, is almost negligible. It's really the program itself and how you build your new identity through different processes that are really beneficial for you and the society. Because I'll use the discipline as an example again. Once you have that discipline, you can put it into profit outside of prison once you've gotten back to the community, and you can use that to make sure you have enough money to pay your bills, and to make sure that maybe you don't take too much alcohol or drugs, or just make sure you keep having the custody of your children and stuff like that. So it's far from being negligible, and it's way more impactful in your life than the diploma itself. Though the diploma can be like that, but most of our students don't finish their diploma with us because either they're transferred, or there are so many things that can happen. But they're everything, the skills they build in our courses or throughout our program are lifelong lasting. That's for sure. Yeah. So to answer your second question, I was just
about to ask it again.
Yeah. I got to teach there for many different reasons, but I used to teach to adults, mostly immigrants that were professionals in other countries, but their diploma wasn't recognized in Quebec. So they had a lot of experience, and I realized teaching to students that aren't as young as I used to teach, so university students, 21, 22 years old, it's different from a classroom where the average age is, 40. Most of them have children. Most of them can relate, and I teach psychology, so I was teaching them relationship skills, communication skills, and motivational information that was really useful, whatever they would do afterward. And by teaching them like that, I was reading a book from Chris Hedges, and he was talking about his experience teaching to inmates. And I realized, wow, these guys must have a lot of life experiences as well. So they must really be able to relate when I teach psychological skills. So I tried to find who was responsible for that program. And at the same time, they were lacking a psychology teacher. And so one of the main responsible there, she reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to teach there. And it was a great experience. Now I'm the second oldest one. I'm not. I've been teaching there for 5 years. So, and it's been an incredible experience. These guys are very smart, and most people don't realize how what life is inside a prison, and how if you want someone to do better, you have to give them the chance to do better, and for that you have to give them what we call optimal functioning. Can I continue on with that?
Yeah.
Yes?
What is
Okay.
optimal functioning?
Optimal functioning. I'm glad you asked. Optimal functioning is a very well studied concept throughout what is arguably right now the most studied or scientifically backed model in the social sciences. It's called the self-determination theory. Thousands of studies now backing this, what I'm about to say. But optimal functioning is basically when human beings are at their best. And I'm going to use an analogy here, so stick with me. So let's say you want to try to rise up to a challenge, something quite difficult. We'll use something concrete like physical, for instance, running a marathon. Sure. So you want to run a marathon. I don't know for you, but if I would try to run a marathon tomorrow and try to win that marathon, I'd probably fail really badly.
I would fail just by thinking about it.
Okay. Well, so there are a few things we can do to increase our odds of winning. So try to find that optimal functioning, at least physically or physiologically. So if I hydrate, if I train regularly, if I eat well, especially proteins and minerals and so on and so forth, if I sleep well. So these are all boxes I can tick. And every time I tick a box, I get closer to an optimal functioning, giving myself better odds or better chances at winning. If I tick all those boxes, does it mean I'm going to win? Absolutely not. But it gives me those chances. I have really higher odds of winning. So psychologically, socially, it's exactly the same thing. There are only fewer boxes, in fact. There are 3 of them, very well known throughout that model. The first one is what we call autonomy. It's the need for autonomy. There are 3 needs. And I just want to stress something out. I would suggest, by listening to me, just think about a moment in your life where things were going very well for you, and a moment in your life where things weren't going that well. And think about those needs I'm about to describe. Ask yourself, did I fulfill, or was my life fulfilling regarding that need? So the need for autonomy, that's the need to feel like you're the captain of your own soul or something like that. You feel like you can decide things in your life. And I'm not saying decide everything, but at least you have some power over your life. Some control. So yeah, can I have some, when I take decision at my job, does my boss let me have some space or some free will? Can I decide when I come in or come out? Can I decide how I do things like that? And I'm not just talking about your job. You can ask yourself, do I have autonomy in my relationship with my lover or with my children? Do I feel like I'm forced to do things with my children? Do I feel like I'm choosing to do them? That's very different. I feel like I have autonomy or not. Very important. And of course, if I feel like my boss is breathing in my neck every time I'm doing something, I don't feel that autonomy. And of course, it's going to impact me. So that's the first need. Second need is the need for competence, the need for mastery. I need to feel like I do things well. I have an impact on my environment. I can, if I'm a salesman, I can persuade someone to buy the things I'm selling. If I'm a single and I want to be with a partner, I feel like I can seduce someone in order to be with that person. So these are very important needs. If I feel like, let's say I'm in a relationship with a man, and I feel like every time I want to have sex, I can't because that person just never responds positively to my ways of seducing him.
Sure.
I won't feel this competence. And the last one, very important one as well, is the need for relatedness, the need for affiliation. Feel like we talk about the workplace, I feel like my colleagues or my coworkers are disappointed if I don't come for the party, or if I feel like I can count on them if I'm sick and they won't just screw things up regarding my projects or stuff like that. Not only I feel like I'm in my place, but I feel welcomed and I feel like
Supported.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. So I feel supported and I feel like I want to support those people as well. So these three needs are extremely essential, because if you fulfill them, you have that optimal functioning. You tend to be more motivated, much more motivated, in fact. You tend to be more pro-social, altruistic. You have better emotional regulation. You are more creative, much more creative and innovative. And so on and so forth. There are meta-analyses of them. There are so many studies that show that. So now, when you think about it in a prison context,
the first one is the one that jumps out to me, right? Because the prison is all about taking away a huge degree of autonomy, right, from these
exactly.
people. Yeah.
So that's the obvious one. But when you think about it, are they when they get to prison, most of them, can they see every day their loved ones? And if they have a family, do they see their children every day in the morning and in the evening, or they usually their need for relatedness is also very thwarted to some extent. And so because human beings, we have that need, we'll tend to affiliate with new people. And so who are the other people I can have this need fulfilled with? Well, it's other criminals, right? So it can be a good thing if they want to, let's say, do better or change.
Rehabilitate.
Yeah. But it can also keep me in the same mentality as well. But I do have that need. So I'll affiliate with people, and usually the relationships are shallower because I don't trust other inmates as much as I would trust, let's say, my family.
Family, of course.
Yeah. And also competence. If I go to prison, usually I've been doing something more than once. And usually, let's say I'm manipulative, or I have very good skills at doing a lot of illegal things. But these are the things I used to do to make me feel competent. So I'll use the manipulation as an example. So once I'm in prison, since there aren't a lot of things I can do, maybe I was doing martial arts, maybe I was doing, I was renovating my house and I was good at that. I cannot do that anymore. So I still need to fulfill that need for competence. And so I'll start manipulating others just in order to feel competent, because that's my way. That's the only pathway I have right now. The easy way, the obvious way for me to do it. That's kind of a reflex. So when you get to school, when you get to especially post-secondary education, now you tap into an untapped pool. There are a lot of things you can explore, new skills you can find, and especially our programs are pre-university programs. So we have psychology classes, sociology, of course, humanities class. We have a huge variety, political classes, history class, geography. So I can find somewhere there something that I really find interesting. So here's my need for autonomy. Oh, I really like that class. So I go there out of my own free will, my own volition.
I get to choose this
class. Get to choose,
right?
yes. Because I could still be a janitor, or I could still be, but I get to explore something new. And while I'm exploring that thing, I get more skills, more knowledge. And so I feel competent. Every time I get a grade, and most of them don't need to have a high grade. They just need to pass the class, because in their past, they had a very hard time having good grades in school, because usually most of them had a very harsh childhood. So just having a passing grade can be very fulfilling for a lot of them. And for those who are very perfectionistic or something like that, some of them are extremely performant, academically speaking. So the need for competence is there. And the last one, and that's so important, the need for relatedness becomes very obvious once you've been teaching for a few months or a year or so, because you realize now you've been following the same students, and the way they act in class is very different from elsewhere in prison, because that's a safe space where they can explore conflict. Oh, you don't have the same political ideas as I. Okay, let's talk about that,
Right.
and let's debate in our humanity class, and let's talk about some biases we have in our psychology class. It's so interesting to be exposed to others. And so usually some of my students told me, yeah, I used to be a racist, but once I've been in class and I realized that guy thinks exactly like me and he's completely different from me in a way, but that's because I was just having those judgmental thoughts that aren't really there anymore. That's very interesting
That's
to
such
see.
a profound change.
Oh,
yeah.
completely profound. And so your student job becomes a student identity, and that identity is profoundly changing because you that identity is not an inmate identity. You feel normal during that time, and that student identity is socially not only acceptable, but it is viewed as something positive. It's not just accepted, it's positive, it's beneficiary for the society. So they start having really positive feedback from not only their teachers, of course, but from their family. Most of them are very, very proud that they are doing whatever, the sociology class or the political class, and they usually it becomes a topic of conversation regularly. So they can invest in that alternative identity, which is accepted and positive for society.
It builds them up, right?
Oh, totally. So we have to remember that usually human beings, we just act on reflexes. We learn new things and then we just reproduce what we've learned. So if I didn't have, maybe I'll make some enemies when I'm saying this, but if I didn't have classes on how to manage a conflict or a fight, an argument with my close relatives, then I'm just going to reproduce what I've been doing since my childhood. Right. And if you look at a 2-year-old, by the way, the age where the human beings are the most violent is around the age of 2.
The terrible 2.
Yeah. So a good thing they don't have all that physical possibilities, because throwing a toy at the little brother or using a toy hammer or maybe a hammer, if they were strong enough, they would do that.
Right.
So we use those reflexes, and if we didn't teach them alternative behaviors, and I was talking about how most of them had a very harsh childhood with neglect or abuse or stuff like that. Well, of course, you're going to do the same thing in conflicts once you're an adult. And the more you use those same reflexes, the harder it becomes to choose something else, an alternative. So when you start going to school and you realize, oh, I can disagree with even the teacher, and we debate about it, and my teacher finds it interesting when I disagree with him. That's new to me. Usually I'm used to
butting heads.
Oh yeah, I'm used to just raise my voice and just yell at people, but now it can be stimulating. And so the more I practice how to behave in a positive way, even during, I'll use the same example as in a conflict, then I have later on in my life a new pathway, a new possibility to invest in or to choose when I'm in a conflict. So it raises the odds of having positive or constructive behaviors elsewhere.
Right, breaking out of those negative patterns.
Yes, yes. So not only do you invest in a new identity, which is seen as a good one from society, it is labeled as a positive one, but also you develop reflexes that are more pro-social and more beneficial for you and for others.
I think if I can react to what you're just sharing,
Please do.
This is an incredible amount of detail, I think, that we get into. I feel like we're getting also a little window of how you teach, right, and how you interact with some of these inmates. To me, one of the incredible things about hearing this is the level of self-knowledge that can be given to some of these inmates, right? Like the fact that it's like the first time I heard about these kinds of psychology terms through either self-help books or other friends of mine, it felt like holding a mirror up to myself for the first time, right? Where you're like, oh, those are my patterns. Oh, these are just like these things that are like sort of, I guess, like subterranean or like purely subconscious is like for the first time kind of brought to light. And to me, the importance of that to people who are in going through this kind of like correctional facility, going through these penitentiaries, is like the value of that is so enormous, right? Because it's like you're saying, right? If these if it's violence, if it's bad behaviors that have been sort of like set in childhood, in youth, and those channels have been dug and dug and dug by repeated patterns, what an opportunity, right, to break out of that.
Indeed.
We have to go to like the bad news, right? Of like, we're hearing about all this kind of positive stuff and these changes and these opportunities of change that you're telling us about. In February, they announced that the program was ending, and I'm kind of curious what your reaction was, what some of the students' reactions were. Please.
Okay. There are many actors that are invested in that program. There are some actors in the CSC over in Coinsville. There are actors over at Marie-Victorin, administrative actors, and of course there are the teachers and of course the students. So I can talk for the teachers, and I believe the students trust me enough to talk on their behalf, but just let's...
that's the asterisk on the statement, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So as for the teachers, most of them were devastated. A lot of them are new teachers. They don't have a lot of stability. So, and it's very precarious as a job when you start teaching post-secondary education, because you have contracts that last for a few weeks, and then you have to kind of job hunt all the time for some time. Most of the time it's like that. Some of us are lucky, but most of us are not. So some people had to cancel other opportunities in order to keep that job. So for some of us, it was very, very devastating, because that was our stable-ish way to get some sort of a revenue, especially in fields where there are not so many classes. If you teach humanities or if you're in history, you have a few classes that are taught in CEGEP, but usually it takes quite a while in order to get enough experience to be able to regularly teach at the same place. So for some teacher, it was devastating. And if I speak for myself, I'm lucky enough to have, let's say, enough stability overall. Still, I've been choosing to teach there for 5 years because it's basically awesome. I have a feeling when I do that, I know what I'm doing is good with a capital G. It's good. I know I'm doing good here. So my first reflex was, okay, we're going to fight. That's the first thing I did. And some of us, I don't want to take all the credit, of course, but I think I was a big motivator for many of us. And others were. We have I think you were able to exchange a few words with her, but we have I don't know her title, but she's there 3 days a week, and she basically do all the administrative work on the place. So inscription or admissions, and she report a lot of things to the CSC, because there's a lot of information that has to be exchanged. So she was really willing to fight as well. Now, when it comes to the students, I know that when it was announced, everyone was gathered in a big room, and there were some of them were crying. Kind of hard for it's unusual, I'd say, in a public place, and some of them were. There were some questions that were asked that were very, very interesting. I remember. I've been told, because I wasn't physically there on the first day, but I had a lot of feedback. Someone just said, "Okay, is there a way for the there's some sort of how you call that a group that represent the inmates in prison?" I just forgotten the name, but they represent every inmate, and they said, "Okay, we have some funds. Maybe we could give you the money so you can keep on." Wow. Of course, there's an ethical problem here, but the reflex of thinking we want to keep that program, even the inmates that are not students wanted to keep the program. We've been told by the personnel there regularly that it's a shame that it's ending, because they saw how different the inmates were when they kept going regularly to their classes. So we started. I started talking in different ways to the media and reaching out to a lot of politicians. Usually they don't respond, but we've been having some feedback. We know that there are things changing. There are a lot of negotiations and discussions made between different administrations. So hopefully we may be able to change the course of actions here. But the thing is, I believe that if we could find the person who decided this, if I could have, I'd say, half an hour, just like we're having here, just to explain what I'm telling you, I believe that I could probably persuade that person to understand that the decision to keep the program would be even better. Because what we've been told is that we're cutting the program because of out of budget cuts. But if you think about it, our program saves money. It isn't something that costs money to the society. It allows us to have less recidivism, and there are fewer people that fail their conditional parole. So they parole is less is more often succeeded, or they are able to rejoin the society more often than not, because because there's a high correlation here. I can say because, of course, but there's a very high correlation between having education. Post-secondary education is even more impactful usually when studies make a distinction between education in prison and post-secondary education in prison. So if you think about it, let's say, for instance, that it costs, I don't have the exact numbers because they're kind of, it's opaque, but I've been told that it's about $200,000 to $300,000 that the CSC pays every year for that program. That budget, if you think about it, one inmate in Quebec for a whole year, keeping an inmate in prison, is about $110,000 a year. So if out of the 5,000 students we had in our program, only 3 of them didn't go back to prison because of that program, we just saved some money to society. And of course, I know for a fact that more than 3 people didn't go back to prison because of our program. I can see it every single day when I talk to them, and how I'm really privileged because because I teach psychology, and classes in prison are much smaller than regular classrooms, so I can give them assignments that are much more personal. I give them journals and stuff so they can reflect on things we see in class. So for instance, we talk about biases, or we talk about the 3 basic psychological needs I just told you about earlier. And they reflect on this, and they realize, oh, I realize now why I came to do this or that, and why I wasn't going through an optimal functioning phase in my life. And of course, if I'm hindered in a way by circumstances or society, then I'm more likely to do stupid stuff. So I'm not afraid, or I'm really proud to say that I cried a few times reading those journals, knowing some of them I know are kind of romanticizing the stuff, but some of them I know are very, very deeply changed because of things like that. And I know it's not only with my classroom. For some students, it's other topics. But I had sheets of papers with teardrops on them. I know, and of course, reading that, I know it's so deep and it's moving, and they realize things that want to make them change. Yeah.
Well, that's. Once again, I think the word I'm always coming back to is this kind of profound change that you're kind of witness to, especially at like the whatever we want to consider like the fringes of society, right? People that have sort of been given up on. I'm getting a little emotional myself thinking about it. We're coming up towards the end of our time here. I wonder if there's anything else you want to share about the work you're doing and what you want people to know about it.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. Let's say I want to stress out that the diploma should not be the main goal when we're teaching inmates. Absolutely not. There are several mechanisms that are at play here that are way more important. We usually talk in the scientific terms of effect size. So I'm going to use an analogy here. Let's say you have headaches and you take a new pill. It's called acetaminophen. And you know for a fact that it reduces headaches. But okay, you go to the drugstore, you take some acetaminophen, and you pay, I don't know, $20 for a whole bottle. But the question you should ask yourself is, does that pill reduce my headache by a factor of, let's say, 90%, or is it by a factor of 0.03%? Of course, would I be willing to pay $20 for something that reduced my headaches by 0.3%? Probably not. So having a diploma, good, but other things, better. So not better, but it's the sum of all parts that gets better. So knowing that you have a way to fulfill your needs in prison, you have that optimal functioning in prison, makes you more altruistic, more willing to be creative, to try new things, get out of your comfort zone, do pro-social actions. So that's a very important reward for teaching them. Another one is the new identity they get. So now I have that criminal label, but it becomes, I have that criminal label and I have that student label. The student label is much more appealing because I'm not shorn for it. I don't feel regret for it. In fact, I can even feel proud of that label most of the time. So it becomes something appealing when I get out of prison to keep on studying, or at least something to hold on to, because once I'm outside, and most inmates are really, really anxious when it's time to go outside, because they ask themselves, how will I be able to reintegrate society without going back to my criminal ways?
Of course.
A lot of people have those kind of thoughts. They're very afraid because they still have their friends outside of prison that do have a lot of influence because of that need for relatedness and such. Anyway, so it gives them a way, or some sort of an escape way to tap into something new that is not problematic, or is not threatening or dangerous, not only to society but to themselves. And it's a way to feel proud, of course. Now, another thing that is very important is how they're able to transfer their skills they learn in school to other parts of their lives. We were talking earlier about a student of mine who developed discipline and was able to start cooking a lot, and instead of doing drugs, because in prisons, for the audience, in prison, a lot of inmates get really, really indebted in order to take a lot of drugs. Usually any drug costs about 10 times more in prison. And so if you don't have a lot of things to do, you look for stimulation, right? So it gives you a way to keep busy mentally. And it's important to consider that, okay, yeah, you can go to school, or you have some professional educations, like you can become a plumber or such, very important ones. But just like you cannot live out of a single kind of grain, let's say you just cultivate wheat, well, you'll have problems in society if you only eat wheat. So you need to have a rich diversity in order for let's say, to keep this population healthy. So in prison, you need to have a diversity of possibilities for the inmates to get stimulated. So I like to use the example of other social animals. So I'll use dogs here. So let's say you have dogs that have behavioral problems. Usually it's because they're not stimulated enough. If the ones that won't get mentally stimulated, you don't make them work, you don't play with them, they usually end up destroying your couch, digging holes in your yard and stuff like that. So in prison, you have some people that really need to be mentally stimulated as well, and going to classrooms where they are taught higher education stuff really scratch that itch.
Of course.
Yeah. And so you consider all these things, it ends up being a sum of things that is, it's more than the sum of its parts. There are interaction here. I saw just under your studio there this research group or something on intersectionality. Yep. So yeah, it's a bit like that. So you have you accumulate things, and it becomes much more functional, much more appealing, and much more stable for them. So I would like to end saying things, a few words that are not from me, but from my students. Some of them have been very loud and very disappointed that the program is ending. I asked a few of them when we learned about the ending, what's going to happen to you guys? What's going to happen to the students? And one of them said, Well, it's quite simple. Most of us will end up staying in our cell for the rest of the evening doing drugs. That's pretty much it. That's the alternative that most of us were following. And I had other students who, before that, were doing very, very poorly mentally. It gave them some sort of something to hold on to.
Right.
And so removing that from them is removing something that makes them better. So it's just going to bring more problems. It's going to cost us more, and it's less human. Can I say one last thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. People see prison. There are two ways to see prison. Either it's a place to rehabilitate or re-educate people and to going back to society. Others see prison as a punishment. It can be both, by the way. But as a psychology teacher and as someone very knowledgeable on motivation, I can tell you punishment is an effective tool, but a very, very limited tool. When you teach someone through punishment, what you learn usually lasts maybe at best 6 months. Usually, except if you traumatize them. But of course, this brings a lot of side effects. You of course don't want traumatizing people. Isn't really. It's not ethical, and of course it brings out more problems. So what is better than punishment is not necessarily reward, but it's identification. People forget that most of us, because we're social animals, we learn from having positive relationships, models. So teachers are models. The relationship they foster with their teacher is a model of a relationship they can reproduce or mimic with other people. So they have in prison, when they go to school, that small window where they feel they are normal. And it gives them an idea of how to act once they are going to be outside. So I'll finish with what one of my students told me. I'm not going to say the exact time to keep him anonymous, but he said, out of the 15 or so years I was in prison, my relationship with you was the first relationship that I felt was human and normal.
Thank you very much for coming on. Speaking about the end of the CEGEP prison program, potentially the end, we'll stay tuned to find out more about what happens to the program. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Sam Rochette, psychology professor and educated inmates, friend, motivator perhaps. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Take care.